Hello everybody and welcome back to another video all about the League of Dracula for 2024. And in front of you we got the league table showing on screen, no gameplay in this one, I'm sorry, but just a little discussion video talking about the results so far, the league table, meta, all that good stuff. Since now we're at a pivotal point in the league, we're halfway through the league phase. I thought it'd be a good time to sort of sit down and quickly chat to you like I've done before in previous tournaments. Apologies, this video was meant to come out a few days ago. I wasn't really in the frame of mind to record. I did try to record it, but I wasn't really in the frame of mind. Fortunately, I've had a positive start to my week, so this is a good time I can quickly record this now for you, and hopefully do a better job of it. Anyway, so those of you who are in the Discord community, either the private community server we have or the Nomad Discord server, you would have seen this league table probably, but I realize a lot of my subscribers might not. So here's the league table for you. As I said, as of the end of the second phase of the league, and therefore that means we are halfway through the league phase. So basically, if those of you who don't know, the league phase has been split up into 4 small phases. Inside each phase, every player will play against 2 other players twice, once as Hunters, once as Dracula. In the first half of the league, therefore the first 8 matches, the first 2 phases, everybody's opponents were determined randomly. There was no seeding. It didn't matter if you're experienced, inexperienced, you won tournaments before, not, doesn't matter. All randomly mixed up. And this is the league table that basically got spat out once all the games have been played. Now what's going to happen from now on for the next 2 phases is the opponents that everybody will get will be based upon league ranking. So you'll be basically be drawn up against players which are close to you in the league. So basically, right now, first, second, third place, that's one little set of opponents, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and so on. So there we go. So we're at the stage now where your opponent's going to be based upon performance and not just random. So there's a few different reasons why we're doing it like that. Because obviously, if you've been given random opponents, the first 2 phases, there'll always be a case where some people might get maybe screwed over in terms of the draw, or might get slightly easier run. It just depends. Whereas, now that we've got the other half of the league to kind of counteract that a little bit. If you've got players who performed very well in the first 2 phases and close to the top, but maybe the draw was a little bit nicer to them, then they'll play against other top level players, and then they might then fall down the league. Or conversely, they might stay there if they generally are good enough and they deserve to be at the top of the tree. Then they will stay there. Same people at the bottom. Maybe the draw screwed them over a little bit, or they're newer players who are getting used to the meta and the way that we play in the community and so on. But they've got a chance now to make a bit of a comeback, right? And they'll be playing against people of a similar ranking to them. So then they've got the other half of the league to push up the table as much as possible, and then people in the middle, they can play against other people who have got very similar win records, so they can push up and try and challenge for the higher positions in the league, or they're going to fall down and maybe just be in a bit of a scrap to try to make it into the knockout stage. It just depends, right? So there's endless possibilities, and it all depends. We've seen it in just this tournament and other tournaments before. Players can go on massive winning streaks and massive losing streaks. Someone could play consistently, maybe not winning all of their games, but they're winning more or less 50% of their games throughout every single phase. It just depends, right? So, but I really like this compared to the structures we've done in previous leagues, where everyone's been divided into small groups and they stay in those small groups and the best players qualify from those groups. I like it. There's more jeopardy, perhaps, in a structure like that. But then the problem is if you're a new player who gets sorted into a group against experienced players, and you find it difficult at the beginning, then maybe after half of the games, you might suddenly realize, oh, I've got basically no chance of qualifying. And you're only playing your games. They're not meaningless necessarily, because I like to think that everyone would be willing to play all their games and learn from the experience. But in terms of your own ranking, in the games are potentially meaningless. Whereas now, the players who at the end of the halfway through the league phase, the players who are towards, I'm not going to say at the bottom, right? Because these are, in my opinion, 18 of the best League of Dracula players in the world, right? They're competing in the World Championship for a reason. They must be really enthusiastic and keen on the game, otherwise they wouldn't be in it. But I'll say people who are in the lower portion of the table, they've got now a chance to catch up. whereas in previous tournaments they wouldn't have that. So I think that's kind of neat. You're going to have top level players playing against each other earlier in the competition. You're going to have, fair matchups towards the bottom of the table, and those games are still very exciting to watch and to learn from. So I think, it's going to be fantastic. And then seeing after each phase how all the players are shifting around. Of course, now, we've got all the players now ranked in one league table rather than in separate groups. So you can actually see your performance more or less relative to the whole community, not just, oh, I was in this group and I got screwed over kind of thing. If I was in any of the other groups, I would have won. Well, now this is kind of the test to see, more or less where your true position lies. I mean, it won't be 100% accurate because the only way you do it accurately is that everybody plays everybody else, but that would result in 34 games in the league, and that's quite long. And I don't know if many people would be keen for that. So we've shrunk it down, as I said, a total of 16 games. We've played 8 so far, 8 more to go. Um, so I like to think that more or less your position in the table would be pretty close to reflecting your, the player's true skill level at that moment relative to the rest of the community. I would like to think so. There'll always be small things, but it should be fairly close. Um, because everybody is not playing everybody as a complete round robin, we've had to introduce a secondary or set a second tiebreaker mechanic. Normally, when we do these tournaments, everyone is ranked firstly by the number of wins. Obviously, wins are the most important. If you win a game, that's great. But then there's also a thing called IDS, and that's called influence damage score. It's basically, think about it as like goal difference in football, soccer. That's kind of the easiest way to describe it. It's not quite as simple as that, and sometimes, the score that you get might not really reflect how close a game was, but it's close enough, right? It's based upon two mechanics that the players are naturally tracking: the amount of influence that Dracula has obtained and the amount of damage that the hunters have done to Dracula, right? So it's not based on any other mechanics. It's mechanics that the players themselves are actively tracking throughout the game, so it makes no sense. But we've had to also add in this extra tiebreaker, which goes before IDS, and it's called MB, median buckholz. So basically, anybody who knows a Swiss-style model of league structure, it's basically a way of calculating the relative strength of all the opponents that you have played against, right? So for me, for example, there might be some repeat matchups because we haven't got a big enough community to avoid repeated matchups, and it'll be very complicated to try and mathematically work it out. But for me, I'm playing against 8 opponents. Some of them might be duplicated, but let's say 8 opponents, across the whole league, not 17. So my 8 opponents might be slightly, stronger or weaker than other players. So the median Buchholz score is basically a calculation of all of the wins that all of your opponents have obtained across the entire league phase, and then you subtract the highest ranking opponent and the lowest ranking opponent, or one iteration of the highest ranking opponent and the lowest ranking opponent. Just so that if there's any really massive outliers, then they're kind of discarded a little bit. So that's what that means as MB score. So that's why you'll see situations like, for example, Ariel here is, I've got a superior IDS compared to Ariel, who's in third place, but because Ariel has, based on the calculations we've done, played against more difficult opponents, Ariel's ranked above me, right? Are there any other situations like that? You see here another one here. Geo has inferior IDS to Hero 1, but because Geo's played more difficult opponents, then Geo ranks above. Those wins that Geo has are basically worth more, if you want to think about it that way, by this median Buchholz calculation. So there you go. And that's how the table looks, right? After all the random games, it's been very exciting stuff. We've had some really interesting matchups between, newer players have had a chance to play against each other, which is great. I maybe got the short straw, and I ended up with Pizza Wizard and Mr. Green as my random opponents in the second phase, which is difficult, and now I'm stuck with Mr. Green again for the third phase. But that's just how the random draw spat it out, and that is the way it is. So it's gonna be very intriguing to see, how things shift around. The third phase has actually started, so I've played a couple of games. I know there's been some games closer to the top of the table. I think there'll not be many matches at the bottom of the table, but there were a couple last night. I wouldn't say bottom of the table, the lower part of the table, I should say. There were a couple of games last night though. But literally because of this, all it takes is because you're playing against people now who are of a similar rank to you. So if you just get one win, that could actually propel you quite a few places up the league, right? Because you can see there's a lot of people ranking on the same number of wins. which is really cool. Whereas you might not get this kind of thing in a small group necessarily if you've got, say, a group of 5 or 6, and there are 2 much stronger players than the rest. You won't see that. Whereas this, we've got this nice ranking going all the way from 7 all the way down the table. 7 wins all the way down the table. But you can see how close it is, right? Pizza Wizard, no real surprise, reigning champion as of the end of the second phase. Obviously, anything can happen in the third and fourth phase, but as of the end of the second phase, top of the table, was also top of the table after the first phase as well. We were, I think, joint top along with Snuff as well, but then I lost a game in the second phase, or a couple of games in the second phase, so down I went. Great to see Snuff at the top, fellow admin, and would probably admit didn't have the best Immortal Invitational, but has really improved a lot. Since Immortal Invitational, also since the New Blood Tournament 2, so great to see him at the top and doing well. Ariel as well, like a player who has competed in all of the Leagues of Dracula so far, not the spring competitions, just because of. Oh no, that's not true. Ariel was in the Immortal Invitational this year, and I actually can't remember their win record now in the Immortal Invitational. I think it was more or less even, if I remember rightly. But great to see, Ariel doing well and at the top of the table and in the top group for the third phase. It's going to be a tough task against Pizza Wizard and Snuff, but I mean, look, any player is capable of going on a winning streak, so it'll be it's really good to see Ariel coming back to all these tournaments and being at the top this time. Obviously, Mr. Green has returned, my almost my arch rival in competition. He's a very tricky player to play against. Fangs of Fire has improved a lot in recent tournaments, so it's really close between all of us. Randiv, of course, another returning player, solid player. See how I think Strider and Randiv played against each other in the American League. That was 18 months ago, so that's going to be then a rematch on that. So see how Strider and Randiv cope with that, if there's going to be a change in result compared to the last time or not. Skybreaker, great to see him return again as well. It hasn't been in tournaments for 18 months and did really well in the second phase. 4 wins out of 4. That's all it takes, right? 4 wins and you're going to rocket up the table. And then I think also Strider and Skybreaker played each other in the first phase and it finished 1-1 between them. So that's going to be a rematch of earlier in the league. So we'll see then if they've learned from each other in terms of what they're capable of, and there might be a different result or not. Got some more experience further down. Spencer and Quincy, of course, they've always been in the tournament. Spencer had a really good start, had a bit of a difficult second phase, but we know Spencer's experience. Spencer could easily win the next 4. So then you've got, I don't know, have Quincy and Spencer and Gio ever played each other? I don't think they have. I don't think they've ever been inside the same tournament groups. I don't think so. Maybe they've played some friendlies against each other, but maybe not. So this might be the first time that Spencer, Gio, and Quincy all play against each other. So then there's going to be that sort of dynamic, right, where you've got somebody like Spencer who's got a lot of experience of all the tournaments, including the Immortal Invitational. Gio is newer, but did extremely well in the Immortal Invitational. And then you've got Quincy who probably has more experience than both of them, but hasn't played a lot of the updated game. But then again, it's more similar to the board game that he's used to. So there's so many factors here, right? We've got a really nice mix of players here in terms of experience and new, and people who know the Immortal update, people who don't know the Immortal update, people who have favored on Hunters, people who have favored on Dracula, right? There's so many aspects to this. I know Gio and Spencer would probably both say that they are more Dracula players. Quincy would probably say he's more the Hunter player. So that's going to be cool when they go up against each other on their favored sides. You know who's going to come out on top. I'll show you the win rates in a second. And then further down the table, we've got, newer players in here. Hero One, Terminus, done well to get 3 wins out of 8. That's a good start for both of them. I think they played each other in the first phase, I want to say. I think so. So now they're going to be playing against each other again. So we'll be able to see how, again, have they learned anything from each other? I mean, I know Terminus is a very studious player of the game. I don't know. I think Hero One is just as enthusiastic. But I don't know if he's been able to watch as many games. I know he's been popping into a couple of live streams and things. But again, I love those rematches and seeing how, if people have been able to learn from each other or not. 2 other newer players, Landschnecht and Andrezot, have had a little bit of a trickier start. But as I said, they've got a chance, right, to make a comeback. And we'll have to see if what they can do. They've got two experienced players mixed in with them, Burke Marley and Wormtalon. Um, Wormtalon's in a similar position after the in the League of 2022, went 0-6 after the first 6 games, but then won the last two, and that really, kind of put the cat amongst the pigeons in terms of what was happening further up the table. But really good for Wormtalon to get 2 wins against experienced players later on. And Wormtown's got experience, right? Been in the New Blood tournament, did well in that, got to the semi-final. Um, didn't play in the Immortal Invitational just because of those two tournaments kind of overlapped and things. But definitely a good player, can easily make a comeback here. Same with Burke Marley. We all know Burke Marley, extremely fun player to watch. Unpredictable at times, but very, very entertaining. And yeah, has plenty of experience under his belt. So easy, any of these players. I mean, I cannot rule out or discard any player in the league right now. Anybody has the capability of winning loads of games in the last 8, and really taking advantage of the system where you're playing against people of a similar ranking. You can gain a lot of places. If you're winning, but also then above you, if people are losing, you're going to start overtaking them. So the table could change quite a bit between now and then the end of the phase 3 and then the end of phase 4. In case you're wondering what these different colors are, basically, in order to progress, you need to get into the top 12. That's the target. That's the cutoff line. If you're inside the top 12, you don't get eliminated after the league phase, and you'll go into the knockout phase. So yeah, just basically avoid the bottom 6 places if you can. I think though, because of the way it's going to be done, there's going to be an almighty, I always say scrap, but in a good way, but a scrap and a fight to try and get into those top 12 positions. Especially, I'm thinking at the end of League Phase 3, whoever's in 11th or especially 12th is not safe at all, because they're going to be playing against people in their group that's slightly higher than them, potentially a little bit stronger than them, and you got the people below them trying to catch you up. So there's going to be a lot happening at this end of the table, as is at the top. So I think that's the thing, there'll be interest all through the table in the later stages, rather than just potentially, oh, we're looking forward to the top 2 players in the groups facing off. No, there's going to be excitement all the way through the league, which is then making the games better to watch. Not that they weren't good to watch anyway, because everyone always puts 100% into it. But I think when you know that there's more on the line, it'll mean a lot more to the players and whoever's watching, of course. So top 12 is the cutoff to get into the knockout phase. Top 4, though, will have an advantage, being they'll skip the first knockout round. So just to give them a little bit of a break, but also then give them a reward for getting into the top 4. So that's kind of the thing. And then the way the knockout will be done will be seeded. So the way people will meet in the knockout phase will be, in theory, that first and second should meet in the final if they win all the games. But my prediction is going to be there are going to be some upsets. I'm not saying that the number 1 seed is going to get knocked out in their first knockout match. I'm not saying that. I mean, it could happen, but I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But I think there are going to be some shocks, in which at some point in the knockout phase where lower seeds are going to beat higher seeds. Especially the reason why I think the lower seeds, because a lot of people are going to sneak into these sort of, positions 10, 11, 12, and the people towards the top are probably not going to notice what these people lower down the table are doing, right? Because they're so focused on trying to get in the top 4, or trying to get just sneaking into 4th place, trying to get 5th place, so then you guarantee the best draw for the first round, all that sort of thing. You're maybe not paying attention to what's happening at the bottom, and especially if you get a player from lower down who suddenly goes on a massive winning streak and shoots up the table, then you might not, at this stage, you might not expect them to be in the knockout phase, but then you might not be paying attention to what they're doing, and then they're in good form, right? So there could be definitely some upsets in the knockout phase. I will have to see how it all plays out. So yeah, so the first knockout phase will be like 5th playing 12th, 6th playing 11th, 7th playing 10th, and so on. And then once they've gone through, then you'll have, first going against the lowest combination. It would be first against, let's see if I can do this properly. First place would be the win against the winner of 8th versus 9th. Second place would be the winner against 7th versus 10th, and so on, right? So the higher seeding you are, in theory, you have an easier draw through the knockout phase. So in theory, the semi-final should be 1st versus 4th, 2nd versus 3rd. But I think there's going to be some upsets along the way, but we'll have to find out. We'll have to wait and see. For me personally, I was pretty happy after this two phases. I mean, I would have loved to be in the top three, of course. Um, Partly just so I'm in the top three, I'm in the top grouping, but also to be able to play against. I probably would have had to play against Pizza Wizard again, but also to play against either Snuff or Ariel in the top phase because I've never played against. I've never actually played against Ariel, despite all the tournaments Ariel's taken part in. I don't think I've ever played against him. I'm trying to think. In Immortal Invitational, did we play against each other? We maybe played once, but I'm not certain. Maybe we did. But we've never done it where we've played both sides against each other. And I haven't played against Snuff either, just because we've never been in the same competition together, so that'd be cool. But, I'm happy, it'd be a good battle between myself and Fangs and Mr. Green. Um, I didn't play very well in Immortal Invitational, so I'm pretty happy to be, after the first phase, 6-2, 3 wins on Hunters, 3 wins on Drax, and then 1 defeat on both. That I was pretty happy with that, to be honest. So we'll see if I can carry on with that form into the latter phases, or if I'm gonna drop off a little bit. I really hope, you know, as I go into the fourth phase, I can feel kind of confident I'll finish in the top three. I'd probably prefer to finish in the top three so I don't have to face the top player until the final, if I make it to the final, which is no guarantee at all. I've never competed in a knockout tournament. I've always done it where the final part of the competition of the League of Dracula was always a mini league, and everyone played round robin. Um, when you play round robin, you probably expect the best player to progress, just because on average they'll get through. But they're always really close finishes in those leagues. But in knockout, more upsets can happen, right? So what it takes is maybe one bad combat in one game and one bad combat in another game, and then you're out. You're just eliminated completely from the tournament. Whereas in round robin, you can kind of make up, for bad luck in later matches, right? So who knows what's going to happen? It'd be a very interesting dynamic for sure. If I can try and finish in top three, I'll be pretty happy with that. But I don't know if I'm going to. There's, Fangs of Fire and Mr. Green. That's already tough enough opponents. And then even if I do make it into the top three for League Phase 4, but then I have to play, the other two top three players. And if I lose all of them, then suddenly I might see myself falling to below fifth place, right? And then suddenly I'm in the sort of the middle portion of the league. Who knows? We just got to take it game by game, like everybody. If anybody's watching this and you're a participant, just take it one game at a time, and then just see what happens, basically. So yeah, that's kind of all with the league table. The only thing I'm going to show you now is if I quickly switch screens for 1 second. There you go. Here are the win rates. As I said, there've been a couple of games from League Phase 3, but I'm not showing them here. Yeah, so the win rate, as you can see, has been slightly in favor of Dracula. 58, 56%, it's got 57% average win rate for Dracula across the two phases. I'm okay with that, to be honest. I thought it'd be a lot higher in Dracula's favor. The Hunters have been making a comeback, especially after the first sort of few matches of the first phase. Dracula's win rate was ridiculously high, but it's kind of now narrowing as the tournament's gone on. Kind of similar to what we saw in the Immortal Invitational. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know why this HP thing is shadowed across 2 lines. I'll have to fix that. In the Google sheet, it wasn't like that. It's when I exported as XP to a PDF, it did it. Never mind. That's just a Dracula's final health point value. So yeah, I think this is okay, to be honest. The way the Immortal Invitational, what am I talking about? The Immortal update. There we go. That was an update to the game in the spring. Has definitely seemed to benefit Dracula a little bit. Hunters did get buffed in certain ways. Just in case anybody's confused, the designers of the game and developers of the game, at least the digital edition, Nomad Games, they were not trying to do an update to balance the roles, the two sides. That's not the objective. The objective was to try to create a digital edition that was more closely resembling the physical version of the game, because there were some real implementation errors and bugs and all this sort of thing. But they're not trying to balance anything, right? The conversations that we kind of had with each other were, let's just try to make it as close to the physical version as possible. And if we suddenly realize that one side is really OP, then we can use we can balance it with rumor tokens or not. We just in case anybody doesn't know, we play all our tournament games 1v1 with all the advanced rules for Dracula and layers and rumor tokens. Um, so yeah, the most of the things in the Immortal Invitational, I keep saying Immortal Invitational, Immortal Update. There we go, because Immortal Invitational was the tournament. The Immortal Update, most of the things were in favor of Dracula, right? Forewarned for the Hunters was nerfed. I mean, it was done properly, but it was a nerf, which makes Dracula easier to protect himself with fog. The trail slides before Dracula's movement phase, which means he gets power cards back sooner. He can mature things before moving, which can be advantageous. You can layer something and then return to that layer quicker, and so on. The Hunters did get some buffs in terms of like combat cards now are more hidden. So if a Hunter's carrying a stake, Dracula doesn't know that unless it got revealed earlier. It will just look like any combat card to them. And also in general, I normally say that Hunters have the steeper learning curve just naturally. There's a lot, especially when we're playing 1v1. You got a lot more to think about and things to sort of keep in your head. And then also dealing with the fact you've got the deduction and all the bluffing side, that Dracula's trying to do. So to be honest, I'm not extremely concerned about this. If this was up towards, potentially, I don't know, what would be a respectable value? I don't know. You can put your comments in if what you think. But if this was above 70%, then I'd have issues. But because it's pretty close, if you're saying out of 10 games, the Hunters will definitely win 4, and then Dracula would definitely win 5 of those games, and then the other one, it could be Hunters, it could be Dracula. I mean, that's okay. I think Hunters have a lot of resources in their back pocket, and if they supply enough and things, they can overrun a lot of the Hunter wins that we've seen. Even though there haven't been as many Hunter wins, a lot of them have been quite stompy. I won't go through all the stats, but there's been quite a lot of Hunter victories where Dracula has finished on 0 influence. So yeah, whereas if Dracula wins, normally the IDS victory is smaller because Dracula has to spend health, right? In order to get away from the Hunters, he has to go to sea, he has to wolf form, right? So the chances of Dracula winning on 15 hit points is less likely than the Hunters winning on 0 influence. That's kind of the way to think about it, right? So it'd be interesting to see now in phase 3 and 4, now that we've got players who are up against each other who, in theory, unless they've been really, their position been really inflated or deflated because of the random draw, if we've got players who are up against each other of similar skill level, will one side dominate over the other, right? If Dracula is that slightly more easier role to play, if you're playing against somebody of a similar skill level to you, then shouldn't Dracula win a vast majority of the games? Or will it be pretty even? I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to make judgments until I see the stats and figures and things. I mean, in the community, I stirred the pot. I keep stirring the pot by saying, oh, Hunters were OP before the update, and now Dracula's OP after the update. I don't genuinely think that, especially the Dracula OP thing. I don't genuinely believe that. I just do it just to stir the pot and cause a little bit of controversy, but I don't genuinely believe it. I'm a stats guy. Just let us play loads of games, and we'll see what the win rate is. In the Immortal Invitational, there was a win rate in favor of Dracula, but it wasn't that high. It was definitely below 60%. It was maybe I can't remember now. Maybe I should look it up. Maybe somebody I might leave a comment if I remember. It might be around this kind of figure actually, but there weren't many games in the Immortal Invitational. There were. Oh, let's see if I can do a quick mouse on the fly. That's a bad mistake. There were 6 teams. So that's 6 matchups every week times. There were 60 games in total in the Immortal Invitational, and you can see that only halfway through the league phase of this tournament, we've already played more games than that. Right? So this figure for me feels like more real than the one from the Old Invitational. So we'll see if there's a big change. This is why I've split the stats table to show League Phase 1 and 2 where it's the random opponents, and then League 3 and 4 where it's opponents in theory of similar skill and ranking to you. And we'll see if there's a big difference or not. We'll have to wait and see. I'm actually seeing this kind of interesting here, even though in Phase 2, even though Dracula won 1 game fewer, the average influence was actually greater, was one higher than in the first phase. It's so weird. But then the HP was lower because they lost one game. Funny how it all works out. Anyway, so the games seem to be closer in the second phase compared to the first phase, regardless of the result. Crazy. Anyway, that's me. I think there's nothing more to say, to be honest. We'll just wait and see what the numbers tell us at the end. Um, and then we'll just take it from there. We're not gonna nerf or buff any characters midway through a tournament. I think that'd be pretty stupid. We just, like always, just look, see what the numbers tell us, and then take it from there. That's all we can do. There's been a pretty big shift in the game. Um, with the Immortal update, it's a massive, massive, massive update. I mean, to put in perspective, I mean, I know I like talking, but I did a video with, in collaboration with Tom and Eriger, two of the amazing people at Nomad Games, discussing the update and what it means for the community and the developers and all this sort of stuff. And that was almost 3 hours long, and we didn't even get through all the changes. There was just so many. So it's really cool, and the game just feels so incredibly fresh to me. And it doesn't matter if I'm playing it or commenting on it. I just love it more than ever. And it's just great to also see um, just amazing, responses from the players, and just the games that they're creating are just so cool. I want to give a very, very quick shout out, going back to the table, to a couple of people. Um, the new players, which I mentioned before, so Andrezot, Landsknecht, Hero One, and Terminus, their attitude has been 10 out of 10. I've been so. If any of them are listening to this, I've said it so many times, but I'm saying it again. I've been so damn impressed. Right? You can see, right, all of them have lost the majority of their games, but all of them have always been messaging other people in the community and me with a really positive attitude. They want to learn, they want to improve, they're not getting too disappointed by the defeats. They understand that they're walking into a community with a lot of experience and a meta that they're having to adapt to, but they're all learning a lot from it, and they're all taking it in the right spirit. So, I mean, everybody in the tournament has, but especially for them, because I realize it's a baptism of fire to, play your first games of Fear of Dracula Digital Edition potentially in a tournament. So they've just been absolutely outstanding. They've been amazing. And also, yeah, a huge shout out also to Worm Talent and Quincy, because unfortunately we had a dropout earlier in the first phase, and it meant that Quincy and Worm Talent had already won against that opponent who dropped out, and both of them were very willing to give up the wins they'd already obtained in order to play against Mr. Green, who was the replacement, and to try to, uh, try and win again against Mr. Green, because Mr. Green was very prepared to walk in and accept the 0-3 record that the dropout had at that point, and then would work from there. But nope, they all replayed the games and things, so it's a real testament to sort of the the community feeling that we've got, and a really strong level of sportsmanship and things, and it's lovely. It makes it all really worthwhile to not only participate, but for me, and I'm sure Snuff and JB Philly would say the same thing, in order to organize a tournament like this when we have, such a great spirit amongst everybody. And then also then there are people in the community who are not participating this time for various reasons, but they're still jumping in and doing recordings or watching the live streams or whatever. So it's just fantastic. And yeah, as I said, I mean, I will be very tired once all this is done, but it makes it all worthwhile, and it all feels so fresh and fantastic. So bring on the rest of the tournament, I guess. That's all I can say. Feel free to leave your comments in below. Oh yeah, in terms of meta, I think the only couple of things at the moment is we've seen a lot of different hunter starting positions. It's not just always Scotsword set up and then maybe Quincy and Pizza Wizard doing their own thing. There's been quite a variety. I mean, they're all kind of based on similar hunting positions or hunter starting positions, but we've got, now the superhero start's becoming more popular. You've got Worm Talon variant to the superhero start, or the not superhero start. I think it's really cool, to see that every time you go into a game, you're not quite sure what your opponent's going to do in terms of setup. So as the Dracula player, you have to wait to see the hunter starting positions, and then you can base your strategy upon it potentially. we've seen quite a lot. I mean, we're always going to see Dracula starting eastern part of the map, right? Baltica, southern Italy, just because these are very hard places to reach for the hunters, so it makes sense they're going to extremities. Um, but we've also seen quite a lot of, I don't know what you'd want to call it, the returning to layer strategy, right? Where Dracula lays a bit of a trail, maybe doesn't even mature the first couple of encounters, layers them, but then goes back to those locations, and suddenly you have encounters with two, or maybe even three encounters on them, and then placing rumor tokens and causing lots of trouble for the hunters. Um, Obviously, I know Spencer Wolfhart is a guy who very much opened our eyes to that type of strategy when he first entered the community like 2 years ago now. And I know Wissa Kajek likes to do a lot as well, but also now seeing a lot of like the newer players have really sort of seen it and gone, oh wow, that's really cool, and they're trying it out. And even players, I mean, hopefully Randiv won't mind me saying this, but I would say that maybe Randiv wasn't the type of player who would necessarily do that type of strategy. But then in one of the games, I think actually it might have been a game that got abandoned, unfortunately, just because we had a crash, which meant the game didn't exist. But I think Randiv was trying it too, and I did it in a game against Pizza Wizard. So we're now getting these more sort of diverse strategies, and people are having to adapt based upon the player and the type of game, the way the game kind of manifests and how the game sort of progresses and flows. It's not just here's a Dracula doing normal Dracula things, and then here's a different Dracula player who always plays lair strategy. We're really mixing it up now, so you don't really know what you're facing, right? If you're a hunter player, you don't know what sort of Dracula you're going to face, and same thing then as a Dracula, you don't know exactly what sort of sign position the hunters might pick, which might change your strategy. It depends on as always, what events the hunters get. Are the hunters going to play really aggressive early just to finish the game fast? Are they going to play the slow, I will grind you down, I will just outsupply you kind of hunter strategy? So every game is unique, and that's what just makes this game so fun. I love it so much. So yeah, that's it. I know it was a little bit long, but not as long as gameplay, so that's okay. Feel free to leave any comments below, and I will try to answer them. And I'm sure there are loads of things I've forgotten, so feel free to pick me up on it. But yeah, best of luck to every single player for Phase 3, unless you're playing against me, and obviously then I hope that all the cards go against you. I'm only joking. I want a good game of Fear of Dracula. I want to win, but I also want them to be good games as well, of course. And yeah, best of luck to everybody for Phase 3. I'm sure I'll probably do a very quick update at the end of Phase 3 if I have time. And otherwise, until then, I will see you very soon for another Fear of Dracula video. If you're watching this and you don't know anything about the community, there's a link in the description to the community. And there's a link to a playlist of all the games for the Fear of Dracula competition. And there are all the links of all the people who are recording games. I'm also pleased to say that Pizza Wizard has added his name to that list of people who are recording, which is great to see. Always great to see more people recording. The links are in the description. So go and check them out. Please come and subscribe and send them some love. They are very cool people. And I'll see you in another video all about Fear of Dracula very soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.